everybody. Welcome back to Movie Reel. I'm your host, Kevin Tracy. With me, as always, is my co-host, Sam. Say hi, every.
Wait, everybody? I'm multiple people?
Yes, you are multiple people.
I'm still
And,
just one.
Yeah. The other co-host, Sam.
You could say I'm solo. Say I'm solo. Just keep going.
It's like.
Wait for audience. Just keep going.
Pause for audience laughter.
Thank you.
Oh my god, who is that? Is it Ben?
Yup, that's me. I'm Ben.
There was a long
Okay.
pause, and I'm like, wait, for dramatic effect or something? Like, okay, what's... Anyway.
Wow, what an intro. Best one yet. 10 out of 10. Alright, we're back talking about some more goofy Star Wars stuff, and this one's no different, and just like Sam's joke, this will be the movie Solo. So thank you for introducing that one, Sam. I'm really glad that you spent 10 minutes convincing me to set you up for that joke for it to land.
No, that wasn't the joke.
It wasn't?
No, that just came because you said you started to say hello everybody when you were introducing me, so I just went with it and it didn't land, so it doesn't matter. That wasn't the joke.
Well, now I feel like a dick. All right.
Okay, just ask me, what movie are we doing?
Hey, Sam, what movie are we doing? I'm asking with sincere, genuine honesty.
I'm questioning your sincerity, but I'll accept and move on. We're talking Quad, the Ben Quadernero story of how he opened a gym on Tatooine because he wanted to be sexy for the ladies.
He wanted to be the next Ben Swallow, is what you're saying.
The next Ben... Did you say the next Ben Swallow?
Yeah, Ben Swallow. Come on, back me up, Ben.
I mean, you would think Ben Solo is named after Ben Kenobi, but he's actually named after pod racing legend Ben Quadernero.
Oh, wait!
True facts.
Oh my god, I forgot about... Yes, Kylo Ren is Ben Solo. I forgot about that for a second. I was like, I thought you said...
It's okay, a lot of people forgot about him.
I thought you said Ben Swallow, and I'm like...
Oh, I did. Because he's swole. He's swole as fuck now. That's the joke. Okay, you need to go on the internet more, Sam. That's your homework for tonight.
Fine. Just fine.
Okay.
You send me a lot of TikToks, and I try to watch as many as I can.
I need to inform you on these important pop culture events because your information, you need to know these things.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so we're talking Solo, and I don't really know where you guys stand in this. I feel like, for me... Actually, I'd rather you go first. Kevin, like, the first time you saw this, you kind of said it was just, like, it was okay. There was one major issue with it, which we'll talk about later. It was a reference that they made.
Yeah.
But aside from that, like, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I feel like it was a fun, like, popcorn flick, but, like, this is probably, like, the first time I've seen it in, like, a few years, because this came out in 2018. I think I've seen it, like, once or twice since this came out. And I just watched this, like, the other day, and this just... If you took out, like, a lot of, like, the, like, noticeable, like, aliens and, like, landmarks and references in this movie, you could have just straight up told me that this was a Guardians of the Galaxy spinoff, and I would not have been able to tell the difference. Like, it feels like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like, the humor's the same. It's a little less, like, juvenile than Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's very much on brand because it's under the same
That's
umbrella.
Very funny, because I thought that's kind of the same thing, too. I kind of was like... So we talked about this last time, and we talked about this last year when we were talking about the prequels. Obviously, Star Wars in particular audiences, I've never seen a fandom that so quickly will recognize when something is off about Star Wars. Like, and like we talked about this with Rogue One, how it it's like weirdly a blend. It feels like Disney, but it also feels like Star Wars. Whereas the prequels feel like Star Wars. You don't think about it. The sequels don't really feel like they don't feel like Star Wars. And I felt like this movie,
Yeah.
it definitely felt like a Marvel movie, kind of.
It really
It
did.
felt like
It felt like it
yeah.
just felt like a weird hybrid heist movie.
But it still feels like it's set in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like all the like them playing like Sabak and like them like Han kind of like trying to and failing to rise through the ranks of like the Empire so he can like be a pilot. Like it had the right feel to it. It just felt like the writing team for Star Wars took a break and like the Marvel Studios team was like,
Well,
it's our turn now.
And that's kind of what had happened with this movie because it's
Yeah.
during production. It was started by one group and
So
then finished
we
by
should talk about
Ron
that
Howard.
for a second
Yeah.
because this was kind of a mess in the making. So with the success of Rogue One, they decided like, okay, everybody loves Han Solo. Let's make a movie about him. Which everybody likes Han Solo. That's not a outlandish idea. But I think like okay, so yeah, it had two. It was the two directors were I don't remember their names. They're the guys that directed 21 Jump Street.
Phil Lord and
It was
Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
I just
Or am I
know that
reversing
you directed
names?
21 Jump Street.
It sounds right, yeah.
I know I just finished the movie. I know it's the correct 4 names. I'm not sure if I have the combinations of them correct.
we'll word scramble
But
later.
anyway, sorry. Anyway,
I think they're also the guys who did the Lego movie.
I believe so, yeah.
but anyway, so sorry, I was getting a text. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, yeah. So the so the two
No fun for watching your
the
movie,
two original
Sam.
directors, they had their experience was more in comedy, and I feel like that's definitely something we need to talk about for this is not just comedy within this movie, but also comedy within Star Wars. But what I had heard was they were trying to direct it like a kind of like they didn't really have an official script, or they wanted people to improvise, and it just wasn't working. And I heard that even to the actor who plays Han Solo, is it Eldon Aldridge?
Alden.
I'm like, I knew of like there's
like
it's a, like A or E.
Aaron Reich.
He
Yeah.
I heard he had to get even an acting coach, which I think I have to say this. Everybody was telling me that Donald Glover as Lando just completely stole the show, but I kind of think I have to look it up. I'm gonna mess with
Alden.
Alden. I'm like, I keep thinking it's Alden with an E or Alden with an A. Yeah.
It's not Eldon. It's not Elden Ring. It's Alden.
I actually think he doesn't get enough credit. I think he did a pretty good job. Like, I bought him as Han Solo.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, like he definitely kind of gives off like early Han Solo like arrogant vibe that he had in A New Hope and a bit in Empire Strikes Back. But yeah, Donald Glover. Sorry, I flubbed his name for a sec. He really did steal a show, and I feel like that's why he was in as few scenes as he was, because they didn't want to accidentally make the movie about him. Because I loved every scene that he was in. Like he was hilarious. Like I just think he's a hilarious actor. So
yeah, part of that is just Donald Glover's phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%. He's like a super good
I have
so talented.
The utmost respect, and like I love Donald Glover so much. I have so like he he was writing for 30 Rock while he was still a student at NYU. He then like left. He still writes because he obviously writes Atlanta, but he left. He became more of an actor. He went off and did Community. He's a really successful. His stand up is hilarious. If you've ever seen it on Netflix,
Oh yeah.
he's obviously a really really talented rapper. Like I just to me he is like he is a performer. He is an entertainer in literally every possible way. And I do think I like him in this movie. I've never really been a big fan of Lando. Like, I don't know. I've always been kind of whatever about him. I don't know. I think part of it was because, like, okay, he betrayed Han in Empire, but also he was forced to. Like, what else was he gonna do? But then, I don't know. This just always really annoys me. I couldn't fucking stand in Rise of Skywalker when he shows up and he's just sitting there in his cape smiling while everybody's talking about like war strategy and he kept like hitting on Leia or somebody and I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I don't know. It just his presence in Rise of Skywalker annoyed me so much. I think Donald Glover did a good job, but did you guys notice there were a couple of times, it wasn't very consistent, a couple of times he had this, like, drawl, like, this, like, almost, like, it's almost like an accent, and it wasn't, it was only there a few times.
I think it was just him kind of, like, trying to do, like, this, like, charming, like, makeup, like, voice to, like, try to, like, draw people in, think that he's, like, as cool and sophisticated as he projects himself, and that when he loses it is when he's like under duress or something.
No, the first time
that's probably part of it. And then another part is probably just from the switching directors.
That's okay.
All that between shooting.
But I was like, it's not like how Carrie Fisher as Leia had a British accent for a slight accent in one scene in New Hope and never again. Like, never again in the movie. And he, like...
And that's probably for the best.
Yeah, the first time I heard it with Lando, it was when he was showing them the Millennium Falcon, and then I heard it again later when he was driving, but I didn't hear it when him and Han were playing, and I don't know, there were a lot of times I didn't hear it, and a few times I heard it, and I was like, it very well could be the director switch. I don't really blame Ron Howard. He literally had to come up. It was just, the movie was almost done. It was just kind of probably
it was like, they had like 3/4 of the movie filmed or something.
I can't even imagine being in a situation like that as an actor. Like when it's going so terrible that the studio drops the directors. And I kind of think that was the right... I don't know. Part of me kind of thinks, yes, Han Solo is a funny character. I wouldn't say he's not comic relief. He does supply comic relief, but he's not there solely for comic relief. But
he's like the badass, like, cool guy character. Like, having him in like a comedy movie would be like taking Commissioner Gordon from like the Batman movies and like putting him in a buddy cop movie with him and Bullock. Like it can kind of work, but that's not really what you want to see, because he's the one who's like dealing with like all the serial killers and stuff that Batman doesn't have to deal with.
But like, I think going about this and kind of focusing on that comedy isn't necessarily wrong, because there were a couple, like the joke where he's pretending like, what was it in the very beginning when he's meeting with Lady Proxima?
Lady Proxima.
And he's like,
and he has the rock that he's,
and he's like, he's like, I just, here's the click, and he just makes a click with his mouth. She's like, you've just made a click with your mouth. No, you don't have a like that thing was funny, and I do think it just made me think of how actually. I'm jumping ahead about something. I'll hold back, but like it made me think of the scene the scene where we see him like in the infantry and fighting on the ground, and how he's
Oh, when he's
yes,
a
and
mud
how he's
trooper.
very much
Yeah,
not a soldier. He's a pilot, and it just made me think of how in maybe one of my favorite things in Star Wars ever, in Return of the Jedi, when he taps the shoulder of a stormtrooper and then runs in the other direction to get him to look away. Like, it was that, like, that's the level of it. Like, he's smart, but he's not a soldier. Like, so to see him in actual battle, I was just thinking of that. It's like, see, that's not gonna fly here. But I think focus, yeah.
yeah, so especially in like that like World War One-esque battlefield that they're fighting in. They're
Yeah.
like literally just like covering trenches. Like, which way are they going? Like, I have no idea where they're at. Their like main headquarters is just a bunch of trenches. Like, are they in
The whole place is
Versailles?
just
Like, where the
But
mud.
hell
I
are
think
they?
focusing on the comedy, because he does supply some of the humor in Star Wars, a isn't ridiculous thinking, but because it is within Star Wars, and to go about it the way the original directors did, and to it's fine to encourage improvisation, but to not have like it was like
At least
is
an
not
outline of
that's
what
not
to
going to
do.
work for this,
It,
and that's
yeah.
also that's way too big a risk
Like-
for this, and I don't know, because we don't. I can't really tell the difference between what is Ron Howard and what's them. I'm assuming any of the more comedy heavy scenes are probably them, but
Yeah, yeah, because like I mean, like I've seen like Alden, like the guy who plays Han Solo. I've seen him in one other thing that I can think of, which was the movie Hail Caesar, which is primarily a comedy movie, and I thought he was really funny in that. So seeing him play Han Solo in this is like, okay, so they'll add some like bring in some like his comedic chops from like that movie into this, but the fact that he had so many lines and scenes where it was just supposed to be improv. Like, he's not like a comedy actor. Like, he has some like funny moments, but that's because the script has him to be funny. He's not like a comedian stuff. Like, if you have um a bunch of comedians and let them just kind of like riff off of each other and have like like chemistry because they've worked together before. Like, if you have like Amy Poehler and Tina Fey in a scene together, you really don't need to write anything. Just tell them what they need to do in order to progress the scene, and
it's
then
not
let them riff off of each
Ghostbusters.
other.
Like,
That's
yeah,
an example.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
that's
God,
a
yeah.
lot of that
No,
is
we're not-
improv, and it makes me wonder what is an improv, like, because and for this it's like this doesn't. It's one thing to improvise line dialogue or like actions, small actions, but not for a whole. Did they not like have even a story? That's what I don't understand.
Is
Yeah,
to do that much
And
improv, you have to have very
They-
talented
it's a
actors.
pretty good-
yeah, and
Yeah,
like, don't get me wrong. Yeah,
Not
it's
the
a
cast
good
for
cast,
that.
but it's just
Yeah.
like in let. Yeah,
Woody
like,
Harrelson,
yeah, no,
maybe.
this is not the cast for that. Like,
Maybe.
they're funny, but like, yeah, like they're all like really funny. But I think that can only work is if they work together like pretty significantly and kind of know each other well enough to work off of each
yeah.
other. And
that's one of the things that
Yeah.
works more in a TV show where you have the time for the actors to develop what they feel like. the
yeah,
character is.
exactly. Like, for the most part, like a few of them can kind of like improv like a couple like jokes here and there, add in a couple lines, but entire scenes that's not really going to fly for as big of a movie as this. You need to have a very solid idea of what to do from beginning to end. You got to storyboard like
Yeah.
pretty much everything from the get go and follow that like
And-
blueprint
Yeah, and
from beginning to end, because
and
yeah,
it's not
otherwise
like
it's just going to fall flat on
Han
its
Solo
face.
is an established character in Star Wars. It's not like Hayden Christensen playing Anakin, who Anakin Skywalker is not an established character. Darth Vader is, and we have to just watch him become that. Han Solo, he is very much. It's more of we're seeing him learn things, or he's given things that make him who we're going to see in A New Hope. It's just really preparing him and us for that. Like, he's already pretty much established. The the kind of the core of this movie of Han Solo is that he doesn't necessarily always do good things. Obviously, he was
Yeah.
a criminal. He was on a criminal planet. Like, that was just, it was more merely survival as opposed to just he likes doing it.
Yeah, he was Aladdin basically.
Basically, and the whole,
Yeah.
but I kind of love, Kira says it, like, you're not a bad guy. Like, as much as he wants to maybe think he is, it's like, no, you're not a villain. You don't intentionally want to do bad things. You do them because you have to, not because you want to. Like, he, is not a bad person. He's scrappy, he's sassy, he's, like, kind of cunning. Like, he's fine. He likes money. Yeah, he likes getting his hands dirty, but he's not a murderer. He's not like for him it was merely survival. And that's like what Beckett, Woody Allen's character is trying to tell him about Kira, make him understand about Kira, and what even Kira is trying to make her understand about herself is that she is 100% through and through a criminal. He does not need to have that lifestyle.
I mean, she's a criminal that has like a couple. Sorry, my throat got dry for a sec. She has a couple like redeeming qualities, like in scenes throughout the movie where she's like goes out of her way to like save them on Kessel and make sure that they're able to escape. Gives Han back his dice, which apparently are very important. His fucking dice.
Those dice that were shown in one shot in one scene in the original.
I don't
trilogy.
even. I barely remember the dice. I was like, it's like.
I didn't know they existed until this movie.
Yeah, no, like, yeah, they were in like one scene in episode 4, and then episode 8 came out before this, and they like Luke gives like the dice to Leia, and it's like no one knew what the fuck that was. Like, who are those supposed to be? Hans? Like, what is that? And then this movie came out, and they try to make the dice seem like the most important thing, and they only show up like 3 or 4 times throughout this movie. It's like these aren't important. Like they're just like a little lucky charm. Like they're not important in this. Yeah, they're so fucking useless.
I wish it was like an air freshener.
Me the fact that they make that.
I wish it was like an air freshener, like for your once you go get your ship, and it's like I don't know, fresh linen or something, like for ship.
Oh my god! I mean, it's basically just like a fuzzy dice decal. Like that's just what it is. It's just metal die-cast dice that we only see like maybe 3 times in this movie, and they make it seem like it's like the most important thing that like Han owned in his life in episode 8, that this is all we have to remember him by. It's like, you literally have his ship and his best friend. Like, what the hell else? Like, why is this the most important? Like,
but the dice are the only thing before he had the ship and the best friend.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but then
I know, it's just so weird.
If they're important, it's fine if they're important, but they need to be like, why are they important?
Established beforehand,
but also just like, or give us like what maybe it was they were his fathers or his mother, like whatever, like something that symbolizes something meaningful for him, like, or so we can like actually care. I was just like, oh, okay, like I barely remember. I'm like, I feel like those are important, and I don't really remember why.
There were just such an unnecessary like plot point in episode 8 that I felt like they were just here, that it was just a teaser for them to introduce it in this movie, and it just, I guess they forgot like mid production. It's like, oh shit, we got to introduce these dice, so they just like shoehorned it in.
Well, yeah,
because again, it's not something that was lost. That was something that could have been lost in the reshoots.
Oh, I can absolutely believe that.
The directors, when they're forced to leave, they're like, and I'm taking my dice with me.
Yeah, I can believe that, because for the most part, I don't think they ever show up again in like episode 9 or moving forward. Like I'm sure like, oh, they mentioned it in this comic or in this book, but it's like no, screw off. They're not a thing. It's not. They don't show up in episode 9 unless they're like on like the mirror when like Lando takes over on the Millennium Falcon like randomly in that battle. But it's been so long since I've seen episode 9, and I don't have the patience to go through that right now.
I will say there were that reminds me, there were a couple of things in this movie that do kind of translate, or they transfer from the original series, original trilogy. One, you brought this up. We had a long discussion about this when we talked Empire Strikes Back, when Han says something about hell, and it was a long, because he had a long conversation about religion. Do they have hell? Like, what, how does that factor in? And here he does say "what the hell" a couple of times. That and
and so does Beckett a couple times. That like, oh, like that's a lot of coaxiums. Like, yeah, enough to power a fleet, or blow us straight to hell.
Or it could be, or blow us straight to
exist.
Mustafar, which is like hell in the galaxy.
I mean, the concept of religion and hell and all that probably exists in some form, because I mean, Han Solo in the original trilogy talks about hokey religions.
Yeah. So, hokey religions and laser swords, are no match for a good blaster, kid.
Good blaster.
But also the other thing is Lando calling Han Han, because he calls him Han in Empire, and I think even Leia calls him Han a few times in Empire. But like, I kind of love that. It's like, okay, so he said it wrong back then, so why not just make it a joke of he's always just intentionally said it wrong? Like that, I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with that. Point movie.
Yeah, it's just like his you're not important enough for me to remember your names. Like, screw it, your name's Han, not
But
Han.
I also was thinking, it's called the Millennium Falcon. Are there falcons in the galaxy anywhere, you think?
I mean, there's ducks on Naboo, so probably.
Okay. The Millennium Duck.
No, that's not where I was going with that.
No. Release the duckling. Is the escape shot.
Release the Quacken.
Falcons is in the bird are actually mentioned in one of the books.
Okay.
It's
okay, so that is okay.
It's Dark Disciple, which is based off of a Clone Wars arc. I only know that because I just read that book like 3 weeks ago.
Is that the one with Quinlan Voss and Ventress?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's something in the book reminds Quinlan of a Falcon.
Okay. I've actually heard, like, this is kind of off topic and kind of going into, like, Kenobi speculation, that it's going to start off with Vader tracking down and trying to hunt down Quinlan Voss with the 501st. Like, that's an interesting starting point.
That would be a heck of a hunt.
I know I've who's Quinlan Voss again?
He's the one.
He's the Jedi that has the yellow stripe across his face.
He's the one that helped Obi-Wan track down Zero the Hutt and fought Cad Bane.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
He's also
he had, like, dreadlocks.
He's the background character that's sitting at the street bar when Sebulba's about to chew up Jar Jar.
Okay. I vaguely remember that episode.
That's a very
that I don't remember.
That's a deep cut.
I vaguely remember that episode. It was like Obi-Wan and other Jedi that he doesn't particularly like that much. Yeah.
Even his own clone troopers didn't even like him.
But anyway, Ben, when you first saw this, kind of where did you stand?
Back to Solo?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. So where did you stand on the original trilogy? Thoughts?
What's your opinion on Quinlan Voss?
I liked it more the first time I watched it than I do now, I think.
Okay.
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 Oh, that's it.
Well,
Okay.
when I first saw it, the sequels to it and everything hadn't been canceled yet. So part of it's everything there was still a chance that everything that it set up we were going to get to see, and now who knows?
Wait, we were gonna get. I remember the Obi-Wan series was originally gonna be a film, and that got canceled, which bears the question.
Yeah.
What if this was never made into a movie and got a series? Like, think of if Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau were.
Something I don't think I've talked with you about yet, Kevin, is that's something a lot of even the Marvel movies and stuff that have been coming out recently would do way better as like a 6-episode series on Disney Plus.
Oh, absolutely.
But yes, this is one of those things they could have done essentially a Crimson Dawn series.
Yeah, I definitely could have seen this as just be just like a heist of the week kind of thing of just like them trying to do all right, we gotta steal the the Emerald of Endor and steal it from the Night Sisters of Death, just like a whole crazy convoluted Guardians of the Galaxy themed heist, and then try to make it fit the theme of Star Wars of the early days of the Empire of them trying to do all that. They kind of did some stuff similar to that in early episodes of Star Wars Rebels of them just doing random smuggling missions around the Empire, and it's they could have easily had shoehorned some of those plot points and threads into a solo Star Wars series.
I don't remember how much confirmation there's rumors on they had a full trilogy set up for Solo that we're gonna follow the rest of Crimson Dawn and all that was going on.
Yeah. Well, I also remember hearing that they were gonna make a Boba Fett movie and a Yoda movie.
I don't know about the Yoda one, but the Boba one was definitely that's what became the Book of Boba Fett, sort of.
Yeah, which I'm glad we got.
I don't need what we have is fine, and if we have more, fine. We can't get into this right now. But
that was one that would have been better as a movie.
Boba Fett
I think
movie?
Boba Fett would have been better as a movie because they didn't have enough to work with to do a full show.
I mean, but I think they.
That's another. We can cover later.
I'll agree to disagree on that.
I enjoyed it, but it could have been better. It was there. I remember. Did you remember how I was hearing stuff people were worried that that Boba Fett showing up Mandalorian kind of stole the show, and I didn't think that at all. But Mandalorian totally stole the show because it just became Mandalorian, and the problem was I'm not watching Mandalorian, I'm watching Boba Fett. But they were great Mandalorian episodes.
They needed.
They really
needed to have been releasing Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
That would have been interesting. That's interesting. That would have been really.
Where you do 3 episodes of Mandalorian, then Book of Boba Fett, and then the rest of Mandalorian.
That would have been interesting. Yeah.
That would have been a good way to set that up.
Yeah.
So let's kind of jump into the characters of this, because we got a lot of original characters for this. I really liked Woody Harrelson's portrayal for Beckett. That was an original character, and they gave him a really fun.
He was a great character.
He was such a great character, and they gave him a really fun lore of he's the one who killed Aurra Sing, and in
that was awesome.
It's what Lando says. It's shit, okay.
It's done so well that
he's worked with Bosk.
It's the Aurra Sing thing is done so well that you could still argue that if they wanted to change it later, they could. Because he could just be someone that's taking the claim for it.
Yeah, no, that totally works, because he's I didn't kill her. I'm pretty sure the fall took care of that. It's yes, because how many people do we know who fall down large chasms that didn't die? Maul. There's I just loved his whole crew, him and Val and what was the
that's Jon Favreau.
Rio.
It was Rio.
Rio.
Yeah. Who? Yeah, Jon Favreau voiced him, which Yeah, I thought he was hilarious. Like when they're like having like that campfire, like kind of like pre-planning the meeting before their like heists of stealing like all the coaxium. He's like asking us like, oh, many women have tied me down, they've tried. It's like, oh yeah, he's like playing himself as like a big like playboy, and I just thought it was really funny, like their whole like dynamic of like this really dysfunctional like heist family. It's like this is what I was expecting for like the entire movie, of just them like working off of each other, and Han and Chewie learning how to do like all these like weird and non-traditional like smuggling operations and stuff like that. And no, they died in like the first mission. They all work together. It's like, oh, okay. We still got Beckett. Hopefully he sticks around. It's like, oh, he died. Okay,
I
okay. Well, this is still fun.
Also, can we just talk about how quickly Chewbacca is just like, yep, this is what we're doing now. I'm in. I know how to do everything.
Yeah.
I'm down.
You're
Well,
190.
to be fair, he's almost 200 years
Great.
old.
Like, okay, their chemistry and them they were great. Like again, I think like
oh, 100%.
I don't view I don't view Han Solo in this movie. It's not like how there's 3 different people that played Spider-Man or multiple guys that played Batman. It's just he's just younger Han Solo. I've never really had issues with that. I know some
Yes.
one of my friends. Yes, exactly. And one of my friends
is Han Solo.
like
still.
she doesn't want to see this movie because she loves Han Solo and she loves Harrison Ford so much as Han Solo, which is fine. But I mean, yeah, he is obviously Harrison Ford is Han Solo. I don't identify Alden as Alden, son of a fucking bitch. I don't identify him as like when I'm like, oh yes, he played Han Solo, but I don't identify him like, oh, it's Han Solo. Like he did, I think, a great job. He kind of was. It wasn't like he's doing his own version of him. I think he did a great Han Solo. Like we're just seeing him in a like. Yeah.
I think that's part of it. He wasn't trying to play the Harrison
and
Ford Han Solo. He was just trying to play Han Solo.
Yeah, it's like this is Han Solo in his like
how
I
many
guess, like, late
timeline
20s,
wise? Because it kind of is setting up for we're going to Tatooine. We hear this gangster's putting together a crew, and he's in debt to Jabba at the beginning of A New Hope. So is it like what, a couple years before? 10 years. Okay.
I
wasn't sure. I was like, I knew it was obviously
yeah,
like in Empire's going on, but I was like, how many years away from that are we? Okay, 10. Okay.
yeah, like because for the most part, it's still kind of early on in like the Empire. Like the Empire is like still like fully established, and like they have like infrastructure like built on, like when they're on Corellia, like they're building like Star Destroyers because like they scrapped like all the vendors from the Clone Wars. Like they're all outdated, and they're trying to rebuild what they have, and they have recruitment stations, they have checkpoints, they had like a stormtrooper traffic control officer that was chasing on a speeder bike that lasted all of like 2 seconds before he crashed. It was kind of cool seeing classic stormtroopers again, not just first order stormtroopers that were child soldiers that were brainwashed but still felt the need to attack and kill whatever they were ordered to. But I really like that it's like, no, this is like imperial stormtroopers that like they believe what they are doing is instilling order in the galaxy and trying to carry on with the traditions of like what the Republic stood for like way back then.
Yeah, we've never really aside from like Rogue One, like I mean, okay, like a Richards is different. Like we're seeing like this is just a story set in the middle of the Empire. It's not about necessarily rebelling against them. It's just living it. And that's also, I kind of realized, though, this movie, like,
Yeah.
it very much felt, it, like, again, this was Chewie, this was Han, this was Lando. I felt all that. But it felt like a Disney movie. And I realized, yeah, it definitely felt like a Marvel movie. It definitely, you know what I realized, though? The music, it felt like I was at Disneyland. It felt like a ride. It didn't,
Yeah, there was the Star Wars themes were in there, but the rest of the music wasn't Star Wars.
I loved that at the recruitment office they were playing a modified version of the Imperial March. Loved that.
Yes.
I didn't even notice that. I just was noticing it didn't sound. It just like, okay, we talked last time about how Michael Giacchino, he did a really good job at mimicking John Williams. Like, it sounded like John Williams, it sounded like Star Wars, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
it's great.
I loved the robot.
Like, it's great.
And it was so good.
It was great. It was also the first Star Wars score that wasn't done directly by John Williams, though. I think.
And it was also the first Star Wars movie that didn't have
and for
an
this
scroll.
That too.
I realized that we've talked about this, like, obviously in every Star Wars movie, the music is such a big part of it. And for this, I didn't really. It felt, every time I heard it, it made me feel like I was at Disneyland, which isn't bad, but I don't know. I was just like, but then I was also thinking how every Star Wars movie we have gotten, or Star Wars anything we've gotten, it's the bottom line is about, you know, bringing peace to the galaxy. You know, there's a rebellion, or, like, you know, Mando is kind of seeing that the Empire is still lingering, you know, like, there's this sense of trying to fight the bad guys and bring peace to the galaxy and end the war. Whereas in this case, Han is not a Jedi. He is not in the rebellion yet. He is just living his life. Like, this should be kind of like a ride, air quotes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, I realize it's kind of like, doesn't feel, I believe he is Han Solo. Like, I didn't, it's like Star Wars characters in a Disney movie. Like, if, like,
it definitely feels like, I totally agree that this movie, it's not trying to change what is currently going on. It's just them dealing with it and trying to go about their daily lives of.
It doesn't feel like
just
lore.
To be committing crime.
Like, it doesn't feel like how, even, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like, because it's not lore that's contributing to, you know, the fall of the Republic or the start of the rebellion or anything like that. It's just.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of does,
but
like,
it's
towards the end.
Towards the end, yes. Yes, but, like, for the most part, it's just people are living life in this.
Yeah, it's just a random crime heist.
Yes. Which is I feel like is actually an interesting way to approach it. It is like it's like a heist movie.
Yeah, it definitely has like an almost like an Ocean's 11 kind of vibe to it, of like them, you know, disguising themselves as slaves and a guard. Like, he's even wearing like the same like guard garb that like Lando wears in Return of the Jedi, which I thought was really clever. I guess Lando just kept it for all these years,
or it was like just kept on the Falcon.
Probably, with all of his like 40 capes that he has.
I love how they made fun of how he has like 10,000 capes. I wanted there to be a joke when, was it Kira, when there's a fire and she's like beating the cape with it, and he's like, my cape. I wanted there to be a joke like, you have like 300 more. Like,
it's like, that was a custom piece.
We gotta talk about is it L11? Is that her name? L3. Why am I thinking
L3?
Oh, why was I thinking I think it's because they said L, so I was thinking like 11. I don't know. And like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I have a weird brain. Anyway,
yeah, her number is L337, which
I guess stands for elite.
Yeah.
I thought was really fun. It seems like I mean, duh, because obviously droids are a huge part of this world, so every Star Wars movie has to
Yeah.
have some kind of new droid. I did. What did you guys think about it? I'm like kind of divided. Like I did like her. I thought she was really funny, but I don't know. Like what's your guys'
She
thoughts?
she kind of got a little old really quick on like she's still going on about like like droid rights and like we are sentient and like kind of like going on like being like really preachy on like hey like treat droids like how you would treat like organics and just getting like very preachy about that, but it does make sense in the time period where they're at in the Star Wars universe on why people are so
very mistrustful of droids.
Yes, because this is right after the end of the Clone Wars, where half the galaxy was oppressed, killed, or antagonized in some way by a droid army. So yeah, people aren't going to treat droids the same when half the galaxy has basically been taught from a very early age to just hate droids and just treat them as objects or tools for them to just make life easier.
I guess that also kind of answers why the spice mines of Kessel are being run by humanoid slaves rather than droids.
Yeah, because like, hey, if these guys revolt, then it's a lot easier to kill a person than it is a droid because a droid can upgrade itself and have like blast resistant armor and like all these like tools and upgrades. Like a human's like, all right, they can put on some like leather armor that they find around here, but I mean we can kind of work
But I
our
have
way
to say
around
the
that.
scene where she gets like shot and Lando just sprinting in the into action and so heartbroken. Like
Yeah. Well, wait, Sam. Before we get into
I'm
that,
kind
what
of
was your opinion
I
on
feel
her?
I don't it's like it's weird. I'm still like I'm divided. Like I something about her I don't know, it was like she was funny and I did kind of love how she was very full of herself and really really sassy. Like I mean, that's a very much a droid thing, especially like what was the droid in like Rogue One?
K2SO.
Who K2 who he's like kind of an asshole to everybody, but she like I love the like girl talk she has with like
Oh
Kira
yeah.
and like saying
Oh yeah. Like
the
how
truth
her and
is
Lando are like, I guess in a
Lando's in
relationship.
love and but she's like he's in love with me. The truth is I'm just not into him that way. And Kira's like how would that even work? And she's like oh it works. And it's like what? And then it's like the fact that Lando has like like she said he has two pillows. There's a lot of like these like sex, little like emphasis on like sex in this movie that don't really happen in a lot of Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like it's like weird. Like I liked her, but something about her, it definitely felt. I also forgot about her. You know what I mean? I didn't find like I don't know how. It's
Well,
like she was funny
she
in this
disappears.
movie,
I mean,
but
she disappears like after like halfway through the movie.
yeah, no, but I mean, I forget about her. It's not like I will remember. Like I remember Chopper, or I remember BB-8, or you know what I mean. Like I feel like I forgot about her after. I haven't thought about her since the last time I've watched this movie. Like she's not a droid. I feel like out of this movie, very memorable. In the movie, I think she's like funny. I kind
Yeah.
of with
No,
you like something.
I can kind of see that. Yeah.
I'm like struggling to. I don't. It's something about. I think it's like it felt forced almost. Like they were trying really hard to make a. We got to have a new, like fun droid that everyone's gonna love, and she was again great in the movie. But like I can kind of think, does anybody really care? Like
Yeah, like I think like yeah, like they were trying to meet a quota. It's like okay, we got to have a wacky droid sidekick that has like an
yeah.
outrageous personality, and it just like kind of worked. And it's like all right, it served its purpose, but it wasn't like anything that like we either yeah, it's like it was nothing we haven't seen before.
Well, it's what it did is it's what it did is it set up another one of the billion things this movie just had to explain why something
Yeah,
from the original trilogy exists. which is when C-3PO is trying to talk to the Falcon in Empire, he makes a comment that the Falcon has like a personality.
Because they download her into the Falcon because it's got the best database in the galaxy, and yeah. No, because that makes sense. Because like in A New Hope, when they initially hire him, it's like, oh yeah, like he's like bragging, it's like, oh, did the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, and he's like doing this and this, and it's like. They like do like all these like crazy smuggling operations, and no one's been able to catch us, which I guess is bullshit because that's why he's in debt to Jabba. But yeah, it makes sense that he would have access to that information, and why they explain it in this movie is, I think, is a good way to introduce that on why he was so successful for so long.
Well, successful is a generous term considering every time he shows up, he owes someone
to a certain degree. Yeah, to a certain degree, I will say.
But I think there's this movie sets up obviously a lot of things about Han Solo, or things that were like later, like at the very end when the Marauders are basically like, why don't you join us in the rebellion? He kind of shakes his head, and they're like, maybe one day you'll think differently. And he's like, I doubt it. And you're like, it's funny because they will. But I like kind of lost my train of thought, but like it was great to see him like the first time he walks into the Millennium Falcon and sits down. Like that was I think the music, I remember when I did the Millennium Falcon ride at Disneyland, and it was kind of that same, like, oh my god, like I felt like it felt so much like I was in a like on a ride at Disneyland. It was so bizarre. But I think you guys talk. I forgot what I was going to bring up. Just it always happens. I should write this down.
So Ben, how did you feel about them introducing the Pikes? Because this was the
first time I was
going to bring up. Jesus Christ!
More well done here than they were in Boba Fett. I'll say that.
I agree.
I agree. Okay. This is the point that I was thinking of. So though, because I felt like with Boba Fett, again, I talked about this with Rogue One the first time I saw it. A lot of things just went right over my head, but having now since seen Clone Wars and Rebels, I caught on to a lot more details. And this time, I think the last time I saw this, and they said something about the Pikes, again, went right over my head. But when the Pikes showed up in Boba Fett, I was more like, oh my god, it's the Pikes! Like, more excited. And do you think this movie, I think Rogue One, for the most part, did a pretty good job at explaining things. Whereas this movie, they kind of like, I remember when I saw Rise of Skywalker and they were talking about how Poe used to be a spice runner, and I was like, what is spice? I feel like that's been the last couple of years, that's been made into a much more spice has been a lot more relevant in Star Wars in the last couple of years. And I don't know, for me it was a bigger deal to see the Pikes in Book of Boba Fett. In this movie, it went right over my head last time. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, okay, he has an out. I guess you don't really need to know who the Pikes are.
You could replace them.
Didn't really
not really know,
but
wouldn't matter.
Like, because when or literally any race, and it still wouldn't have mattered. But it was really interesting watching this movie with my family, because they, outside of like the main like core movies, like the numbered movies and like Rogue One, which I think only like my dad and my sister saw, like my mom had no idea, which was fine. They really didn't know, like, Clone Wars or Rebels or anything like that at the time. So watching this movie, I'm getting like the majority of these references, and they're like, oh, like what are the Pikes? And then when we get to the ending, spoiler, when Maul shows up, I'm like, oh shit! Like I verbally said, oh shit, in the middle of the theater out loud, and like my mom like looked at me and was like, what's that? Maul's like, yeah, and like my sister's like,
don't you see his sweet
no,
robot
he died.
legs?
Like, yeah, on Tatooine, and like I'm like. Yeah, like I had to explain it to them. It's like, yeah, no, that was Darth Maul. Like, who else who looks like him has the Force and has a double-sided lightsaber? Like, even though it's not the same one, but still.
Savage have one? I don't
he had a
remember. Does he have a double-sided lightsaber?
Yeah, briefly. He had the axe first, then he got a double-sided one for a while, and then
But
yeah, and then probably dies. Like,
but yeah, you
after.
Told me when you first saw Solo when it came out, you said, yeah, I kind of liked it, but they made a reference to Clone Wars, and unless you've seen Clone Wars, you're not going to get it. And I was thinking like it was an Easter egg, like somewhere in the, like, you know, I didn't think much of it. And then when I watched it, and I was like, wait a minute. And I was trying to do the math in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then you're like, oh yeah, Darth Maul's alive. And so that was kind of sort of, I mean, that was kind of ruined for me on Clone Wars, but
yeah, and well, I mean, to be fair, like
that had like
knowledge
10 years
wasn't
beforehand
new.
or
like
whatever.
that happened in
almost.
Right,
yeah, like,
but again,
was like,
not everybody has seen Clone Wars.
For the general audience, that completely came out of left field. I literally had to sit my mom down because she kept asking questions and like basically break down like the timeline on like what happened to Maul, like the main core set of movies, because she forgot a lot about like the prequels and stuff like that. It's like, so this is what this, like, I had to break them down to like their most simplistic parts so I could cover
like
everything.
Okay, for example, in Mandalorian, when pretty much any character like Bo-Katan or Ahsoka show up, they're explained.
Yeah.
We don't need.
But you don't need to.
But I feel like
all
that, right? It doesn't make right. Whereas at the end of season 2, when Luke shows up, and everybody on the internet was kind of like, "Oh, who's a main?" Or yes, like, okay, by this point, like who's it gonna be? There's one Jedi that everybody knows. And I appreciate that, despite the weird CGI, I appreciate that it was Luke, because if it was someone else, it would not, the audience would have been like, who the fuck is this person? Who, if they haven't seen Clone Wars or Rebels, whatever. But obviously in that case, it had to be Luke. So in this case, bringing in Maul, yes, people know who Darth Maul is, but as far as most people know, who, if they haven't seen Clone Wars, they think he died when he was cut in half, which is fair to think.
And then throw down an exhaust shaft for a reactor.
Yeah, cut in half.
That's fair to assume he died, but he didn't die. Yeah. So, which is, again, fine, but then to bring him in this way, and not everybody knows that, I was like, what? And I was like trying to do the math of like, so this is before Phantom Menace? Wait, that doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah, like my sister, like, she'll deny this now, but she like was trying to convince me that wasn't Darth Maul multiple times. It's like, no, that wasn't Darth Maul. It's like, yes, it was. It's like, no, he died on Naboo. It's like, no, Obi-Wan killed him on Tatooine, like, years later. It's like, what? No, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, and I showed her the clips, like, and she like completely dropped it after that. Like, she'll deny it. Like, if she's listening to it, she will deny this. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Let's say it wasn't Darth Maul, and it was just another one of his like brothers of his species, like
Zabrak.
Like, then the audience would have been like, who the fuck is this person? Like, that's even worse. Like, that would
no one else they could have
like,
used.
That would be even more confusing. It's like,
right. So Darth Maul basically is
Yeah.
So Crimson Dawn is headed by Paul Bettany's character, which I feel like...
No.
Wait.
No.
Oh!
No. Crimson Dawn is headed by Darth Maul. That particular position was filled by Paul Bettany's character, and he reported to Maul. That was just like a small
Okay. I was getting mixed up.
I think it's more like Paul Bettany is the face of Crimson Dawn, and Darth Maul's the Maul. Yeah, the power behind it.
The actual governor.
Yeah,
like the ruler.
Paul Bettany the whole time. I'm like, I really like Paul Bettany. I think he's a great actor, but I was just like, he just feels like a Marvel villain. Like, I don't know. It did not feel like.
He really did, and even died like a Marvel villain because he just died. After the
fight scene with him and Kira, like that was a great fight scene, but something about that also, I don't know. It didn't. I don't know. It's weird. It's bizarre. I didn't notice it again. The last time I saw this, I hadn't seen Clone Wars or Rebels, and now that I understand so much more, I'm just like, it's so weird. It's like Han Solo and Lando are in a Marvel movie. Like.
Yeah. Also, I just want to point out this came out like a couple months after Infinity
it wasn't
War.
months. It was
Paul
weeks.
Bettany had like a hell of a year
just like
doing just like the fact that he did those two massive movies for like in the same years, like his schedule.
Just like Josh Brolin was Thanos, and he was also in Deadpool 2. Like also another like what a hell of a year for him.
Yeah.
It's Paul Bettany was only in the reshoot for Solo.
What? So who?
Yeah, he was added in the reshoot.
Oh, he was?
That character was originally played by someone
I didn't know
else. But they couldn't. That person couldn't come back for the reshoot,
so
they recast as Paul Bettany.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't Paul Bettany. But that character was still there.
Huh.
I'm like, that character?
Or a version of that. A version of that.
Okay,
character.
But I'm like, that character was just Paul. What the fuck, previous directors? Like, oh my god.
Paul Bettany didn't know about any of the facial features until he saw the movie. Those were all digital.
Oh, I mean,
so there wasn't even like makeup or anything. It was just he just shot the scenes and they came back and added everything. Probably just because
they were running out of time, but also
they weren't sure what they were going to do.
So it just was regular Paul Bettany in a suit, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which, I mean, it
pretty much,
that's
and
interesting.
Random, I guess
those scars were added digitally, even when they weren't.
That's really funny. Dark. It looked fine. I don't know. I didn't have any opinion on it. I was just like, why scars? Like, what's wrong with you? But
it's because he's not a human. He's something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was confused on, because like I wasn't sure. It's like, is he a human with scars or is he an alien? And I'm just not able to fully identify this.
Near human. They are on the actual Stars wiki. He's listed as a male near human.
That's the species.
That's the species.
Wow. Okay. That's
near human.
That is the most lazy human species. I'm a near human. That sounds like a were human. It's like, I'm a were person. I was bit by a rabid human. I remember
one time my family saw
I turned into a man in a business suit.
A Chipotle was going to be like moving into this like building, and so on the outside there was a banner that said "almost," and we all laughed like it's like. We knew it meant almost, like it's coming soon. But we were laughing, like, because it looked like it's almost Chipotle. Like, it's kind of like it, but not really. Something we haven't talked about, we haven't really talked about Han and Kira and their relationship. Because that's kind of what is driving him this whole movie
Yeah.
because he managed to. They were trying to break out of Corella, and
Corellia.
Corellia. He, I knew that was wrong. Anyway, Corellia.
It's all good.
And he managed to get off. She didn't, and then the whole thing is he was going to become a pilot. He was going to, okay, he can't become a pilot yet. He has to join the infantry. And so he goes through that for a couple of years. And I do love his, like, line when he's like, what is our objective? And they're like, to get rid of all the hostiles. He's like, but it's their planet. We're the hostiles. And it's like, aha!
That timeline was about 3
Yeah,
years.
right, yes.
Yeah.
And
which, if you do the math, means the opening scene on Corellia and the opening scene of Rogue One take place very close to each other.
wait a minute.
Yeah, I was trying to like figure. Wait, the opening scene. Oh, right. The opening scene of
Where
Rogue
they're
One,
on, where
they
Ben Mendelsohn's character comes down and picks him up.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Because I briefly forgot that it takes place in the past when
Yeah.
Juno is a kid. I briefly
Did you say
forgot that
Juno?
for a second. Jin. Yeah, Juno Urso. Oh, I'm not allowed to mix
No.
up the names.
Fine, fair enough.
Carillion.
But anyway, but she's like the reason he's like, okay, he wants to do whatever he can to come back and break her out. And then the thing is, and I kind of like, I do love, like I said, I love the girl talk conversation between Kira and L3 because I love, like, she's like,
Yeah.
he is clearly in love with you and you're branded. So I'm kind of guessing that, like, like this, that's not going to happen. And, and I just kind of like, she knows that Han's literally going to do anything to, like, rescue her but I think what I loved about their relationship though was because Han was in love with her and maybe they would have ended up together. Who knows? But I kind of realized something that I love though about it is it shows why he and Leia are so good together because Kira was too much like him, but she is like a little bit more like she is a criminal, right?
He was who he thought he was.
She is.
Yeah.
She had she had done probably horrible things, but I'm so curious, like what kind of stuff does Crimson Dawn do?
Crime.
Well,
I mean, yes, but like they're like she's done horrible things.
They do
like,
drug.
Like steal stuff.
They do. They actively like murder people indiscriminately. They have enforcers.
But it's you never really see how they get money or what they actually do because the Pikes control the spice trade. And they have alliances with the other crime families. But like, what do they do?
Yeah, like I think it's explained in like some like the comics and books because like Maul for the most part kind of like operates like or deals with like all like the head crime families. Like he deals with like Death Watch, like who are like the main like bulk
Not
of
so
his
much
like
after
private army. Crimson Dawn is like
Clone Wars. He's kind of off doing his own thing again, having to rebuild.
Yeah,
but
still, but yeah. I mean, they're gone, but I mean, still, yeah. I mean, he still has like a few like loyal like fanatics, like not as many as he would have hoped, but still. But yeah, like the Pikes and like Crimson Dawn are like the Pikes do like all like the drugs. They're basically like the Breaking Bad of his group, and like Crimson Dawn is like I guess like the financial and kind of is like the like does like all the wet work for him of like trying to like make sure that everything is stable enough for him to still have a bit of like an empire to get revenge against Palpatine and Vader. Because we later learn in like a comic or a book where at the end of this movie he has Kira go to Dathomir and he tells her like the whole story and trains her how to fight Sith combatants, and she
what'd you just call it?
Manages to like get
it sounds like
Sith
you said combatants.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, he trains her how to fight like
Okay.
people who like can wield lightsabers, even if she doesn't have
It's
one.
it's
Is that better?
what she knows is from Terrace Kasi, and it's from Legends of Terrace
Yes.
Kasi, which was a video game way
A
back.
a really shitty video game, a really shitty like PS1 video game. But yeah, he teaches her how to do all this, and at some point she manages to intercept Han in Carbonite, and is like going to like auction him off as like a trap to like try to get Vader. But she's like actually gonna like return him to like the rebellion, and she confronts Vader and like holds her own like really well against him. Like she isn't backing down. She's like actually like landing a few hits on him, and the only reason Vader doesn't outright kill her is because he senses Luke nearby, and he immediately stops and walks away. And then Boba steals like Han again, and they go into Episode 6. And
But
I think that was like the last we've
I think that's
ever
the only
heard from
time
her
we've heard
That's
about
after
interesting.
that.
outside of Solo.
But I think the point, but like, I think
Yeah.
just watching it, I realized like, because okay, he has a love interest and someone that he cares about in this movie, and we obviously know what's going to come for him. So I remember just thinking like, she is like, yeah, she like when she was saying to him, "You're a good guy." Like, you're not a bad person. You're not a villain. You're not a bad guy the way you seem to think you are. And like, okay, after she killed Paul Bettany's character, could she have just left? She disappeared. She done something. Like, if she wanted, you know what I mean? Like, she could have escaped. That was her.
I mean,
she could have escaped,
yeah,
and she chose not to.
I think Maul already knew she existed.
Right,
yeah.
but
Because, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I see what you're both saying. Like, yeah, Maul knew that she existed, and it seemed like her main tie was Paul Bettany's character. But she easily could have just like faked her death or like disappeared after the mysterious death of like Dryden and all of his enforcers, and like Memphis Nest stealing their like latest shipment twice of coaxium, and it could have just made it seem like she died or disappeared while retrieving this. And Maul, for the most part, would have been none the wiser because there was no one of his organization there to verify what actually happened.
Yes, that is. You don't rise to being basically the number 2 of that group and not want to go to number 1.
And I just, I just think that like she had an opportunity and she didn't take it, or she took was power over being with Han, whereas Han. Right.
She took the opportunity that she wanted.
Okay, like later when with like Leia, when obviously she cares about him, but they both know he's gonna leave. That's why he's being kind of like he's not really doing anything because he's leaving after. And then I love Return of the Jedi. They're just both like, fuck it, and they're together. And I just think, but I kind of love how, in contrast to Kira, Leia she's stubborn like him. She's scrappy in her own right. Like, they are more opposite, but they're more compatible, where Kira and him are, it's like she's going down a dark path and she doesn't want him to follow, basically. Which is, I guess, noble in a way, but I don't know. I kind of think that this relationship compared to Han and Leia is just so interesting. Yeah, it's I mean, definitely, sure, but it's just interesting because they're so
toxic.
Different. They're so opposite and toxic.
Well, Kira has that line when they're in the closet where she's like, "I don't want you to know what I've done because
and then they make out in
you
the
won't
capes.
look at me like this.
You'll look at me differently." Yeah. Which
let's have sex on one of Lando's capes.
What a place to make out, surrounded by capes.
What did you guys? I feel like the ending
Okay.
is so kind of heartbreaking, but I also kind of love it where what I keep on saying Woody Beckett basically decides to he makes it very clear to he tells Han like don't trust anybody because like if you expect you always expect betrayal and he thinks that Han wasn't listening and blah blah blah, but then Han, kind of, basically does it right back. And but what I love is just that very end when they're both it's one of them is going to die. And so Han shoots first and
he did the thing.
He did the thing. But also I just kind of love but I love how Beckett was going to kill him. There was no other option. One of them was going to die, but then Han stays with him until he dies. And even Beckett is like, he did, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like, did the right thing.
Yeah, he even told him, it's like, you did the right thing. I would have shot you dead.
Like, I just find it's heartbreaking. It's like, he just killed, I mean, I guess they're friends, but he just...
I mean, for the most part, he just killed his, like, mentor and, like, probably the closest thing he's ever had to, like, a father figure.
But also,
I mean, the other side of it, though, is they've only known each other for, like, a week.
I mean, that's longer than how long Luke knew Obi-Wan, and he was still heartbroken when he died.
Fair. Well, he'd known about Obi-Wan for much longer, though.
True.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll give you that.
But in this case, also, Luke did not kill Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan always intended to die. Like, he knew he knew he probably wasn't going to leave the Death Star.
He sacrificed himself to get away.
Yes. And in this case, I don't know, just...
to get away.
I feel like there's a fine line between expanding a character and ruining a character. Like Last Jedi, Luke would not do those things. Like, we know this. We know that's not something he would do. So, like, Rian Johnson, why? But here, I think we're seeing Han in situations we haven't seen him in before, but the whole, like I said, the point of this movie is that he might be a criminal, but he is not a bad guy. He is not power hungry like Kira. He's not just in it to, like, he...
Yeah, no, it's like, just like how they say in Wreck-It Ralph, you may be the bad guy, but that doesn't mean you have to be the bad guy.
But, yeah, and even, like, him and Chewie right away, like, he realizes... Which also, he speaks Wookiee to him to get him, obviously, to... So Chewie can understand him.
Not eat him.
So Chewie understands him. And I've never... Yeah. So they understand each other, but he was speaking Wookiee, obviously, to get him to trust him, which... That was fun. They were great, and I just love their relationship and how they, like... It was...
Well, and that brings up something else, though, is why does Han Solo know Wookiee before he meets Chewbacca?
Yeah, and how did he know Wookiee?
Exactly.
Like, we never see him interact with a Wookiee before. Because
it's always just kind of assumed he knows it because he's worked with Chewbacca for so long.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe maybe there was a Wookiee on Corellia at some point.
It would have had to have been because there wouldn't have been a Wookiee
very fair. I have to say, the Wookiee...
Yeah,
the other Wookiee that so Chewie and him break off when they're on Kessel, and because he sees other Wookiees, and one of them, I don't know, like Chewie's always looked the way he looks. I don't think anything of it. He looks like a Wookiee, whereas this other Wookiee, it looked like he was wearing a mask. It looked like a costume. I don't know. Something about his face looks so weird to me, and I'm like, is it like plastic, like a Halloween costume? It looked really weird.
No, I had a really weird realization that I know I've seen that guy before, and he looked exactly like in the Will Ferrell movie Land of Lost, the caveman guy that they're hanging out with. It looks almost exactly like him. Just like it's like,
oh my gosh, yes.
It's like I forget his name. It's like Chica or something like that. But it's literally just like this little like ape like caveman guy that's just like all fur. He's like more like monkey than man. Is like mid evolution, and it's like that is 100%.
But you know
what
I
that guy
mean,
looks
which
like. Oh yeah, it's a very Uncanny Valley look almost.
But overall, with this movie, I think like it definitely has problems, and it definitely could be better. But I think I don't really. Again, I don't blame the actors. It was kind of a mess to begin with. I don't know. I think this movie gets way more hate than it should. I remember I don't think you were there, Kevin, but at your graduation party, you were off talking with your other guests. Steve, I remember we were talking about Star Wars, and I think we were talking about Solo, and I hadn't seen it by this point. I don't think I'd seen it by this point, and Steve stood up and just went, "I really like Solo," and then just like walked away because he didn't want anyone to judge him. So I was always under this impression that it was like a total piece of shit. And then when I watched it, I rewatched everything. Well, I watched like half of Last Jedi, but still, I rewatched everything before Rise of Skywalker. And when I was watching Solo, I was like, I even texted you, Kevin. I'm like, is something wrong? I kind of like this movie. And you're like, yeah, it's not that bad. Like, I think it gets way more hate than it deserves. I feel like people want to hate it and don't want to give it the time of day. And there are reasons to have issues with it for sure. There's reasons to not like it, fine, but it's a fun movie. I think everyone needs to kind of chill.
It's a serviceable, entertaining movie that doesn't really contradict anything that's happened before it for the most part, and it fits pretty well with the area that it's supposed to be in.
90% of the movie is just showing things that have happened
exactly
that were talked about before.
I think that's why people have an issue with it, is because they wanted there to still be like an air of mystery. Like we wanted the Kessel Run to still be says. Like this which unknowable brag that he always had. Yeah, like we don't want to see it, but yeah.
What do you mean you didn't want to see everything you've ever heard about Han Solo in 2 hours and 15 minutes?
Which actually, okay, so just to clarify, because I was getting really mixed up with the terms and all these things, but so Kessel is the system. That's where the Pikes are. And that's where they're going to steal the
the spice mines of Kessel.
And the Kessel Run is the gas tunnel thing that they have to go through. Okay.
Yes.
Is it
that was the route that he took?
Well,
is it the way to get, or they the thing they had to go into to escape the
Kessel Run is just getting from Kessel out to normal space. How you do it is up to you. The most common way is that.
But so when they went into they went into it to escape
the maelstrom.
That was also when they're given it juice, and then it that was fun. That was funny. It was stuff like that where, it's a Han Solo. Han Solo he's done all these. We know he's been on all these adventures. That's what this movie's gonna be. I think that's the bottom line. It's not contributing anything related to Jedi or the rebellion. I mean, again, a little bit at the end, but
It's also the first movie that they never say the word Jedi.
Because that's not relevant.
That's true.
Actually, it may even be the only live-action Star Wars property or animation where they never say the word Jedi.
That is true. It almost was the first one where they didn't just
have a lightsaber,
and then Maul kind of ended that streak real quick.
But it didn't need to. It's not that kind of movie.
It was really fun. It's a heist movie. This is literally just the closest thing that we're gonna get to Guardians of the Galaxy. I know I've said that before, but this really just felt like a Guardians of the Galaxy 1.5.
So is Chewie Groot, or is Chewie? I feel like in this, there's Chewie Rocket.
Yeah, he's Groot.
He's
Groot.
Yeah, Chewie's both Groot and Rocket.
He is their love child.
So Actually, really quick, the girl, the main like leader of the, yeah, she the
Impus
one
Nest.
from Falcon and Winter Soldier? Okay, I was like,
Erin Kellyman, who was also in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You know,
pretty
the exact same character.
Yeah, she's the. Oh, we have a young girl that's the leader of this rebellious
She's
group.
done it before.
Yeah, we'll cast her.
I have experience. I led a.
She's the.
I have
It's the
experience.
exact
I've
same
led
character.
I led a rebellious group and helped take down Paul Bettany, and yeah. So Ben, since you're our guest of honor, do you think this movie is real? Was there anything in this that you didn't think was? Is there anything you think was or wasn't believable, or anything you did or didn't buy?
I mean, the overall story is. You have to get past the fact that it's in space and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well,
All the
yeah.
sci-fi
And
stuff.
like,
But yeah, it's the overall. You have to complete the job to try and get out is believable.
yeah. Okay, Kevin.
I want to say yes, but there were a couple things that I thought were kind of odd. Like, first of all, I think this was like the first time we ever really learn about coaxium, like the fuel source for like all the ships and stuff like that. I don't think we
No.
ever. Has that been
It
mentioned
was
before?
It wasn't mentioned by name, but fuel was a huge issue
Well,
in The
I
Last
knew
Jedi,
fuel was like
which came out 6 months before this.
yeah, like I know fuel was like a really big like thing, but it wasn't like coaxium, like this hyper fuel. It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's different than just regular fuel. Like I never really knew that it was like a separate thing, but I mean, I guess it makes sense.
But yeah, this is basically the first time it's really mentioned.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought it
Well,
was a little.
First time chronologically,
Yeah. Technically, you're right. Okay.
or in release order. Other stuff has mentioned it since this, before Solo. But yeah,
Okay.
it's a whole thing. It's weird.
All right. Well, now I'm getting a headache trying to think of this. I would.
Yes, this is the first time it showed up.
Jesus Christ, Ben! You keep saying something else.
It's the first time it showed up.
Oh my Jesus Christ, Sam! What did you think of this fucking movie? I've completely lost my train of thought now.
Well, for starters, I think it's the first time that name has shown up in a Star Wars movie. But
oh my god,
I'm with Ben. I think there isn't really, oddly enough, there isn't really anything I think the one thing that I'm kind of going back and forth on is when the first job fails because, like, okay, the Marauders also have it, they're super low, and Han's like, we have to let go of the shipment or you guys are gonna get killed. And Beckett says, we're not stealing for ourselves, we owe it to Crimson Dawn. And I was kind of thinking, why didn't he say that they weren't stealing it for themselves? Or at least say, like, we're not, like, maybe not mention Crimson Dawn. Because Crimson Dawn, it's like, I couldn't tell, like, how important, I know it's important in the story, but in Star Wars as a whole, how important is it? And if he had said, like, said something like, Han knew they were delivering it to somebody, and he didn't know it was Crimson Dawn. Like, I don't know, like, is that something to be afraid? I mean, yes, it's something to be afraid of, but like, why, as an audience, am I supposed to really care? But I think I was,
yeah. Well,
go.
I think it was. I think it wasn't mentioned because at that point the general audience had no idea what Crimson Dawn was. Just like how no one knew. Like the general audience had no idea that Maul was still alive. So it's like him saying that would have meant really nothing. But for everyone else, it's like we're not stealing for ourselves. We're stealing this for the mob. Is basically like what Beckett's saying to him. Like I feel like the only way that they could have made this more digestible for the general audience by mentioning stuff that like they would all get is if they were working for Jabba the Hutt. Like that's the only way I can think of this making sense.
They alluded to that with the big shot gangster on Tatooine.
Yeah, like I mean, they mentioned him at like the very end, or like very heavily allude to it. But if for the general audience, like the whole like Crimson Dawn,
like that,
they had to have like someone that they would recognize, and Jabba the Hutt is really like the only gangster that the general audience is really gonna gravitate towards.
They couldn't do that because they were setting up the second movie to be Han Solo pulling his first job.
So he's done multiple jobs for Jabba. Okay, but okay.
Yeah. Because he was like, I think he was like quoted as like.
That's how he racked up such a tab.
Yeah, I think it was like he was like quoted as like Jabba's like favorite smuggler for a while until like he dropped a shipment at the first sign of Imperial blockade. It's like, yeah. He botched up one job. You're gonna try and kill him over that? Okay.
He can't have them running his plates. He's
okay. This was actually something. This was something
this movie
I thought of the first time I watched it, and I was like thinking. I forgot what it was, and I was trying to like think about it. But the card game with Han and Lando. I liked that scene, but I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, so he lost, but he ended up helping them and letting them take the Falcon anyway. So I was kind of wondering, like, I don't know. It seems plausible. Obviously, I totally would buy that they would have him attempt to win it first, but like because Lando was so like willing to help them anyway because he was going to get a cut. I was like, why not just start that?
Well, they don't make a big deal about it, but the Falcon's in lockup.
They
help him break it out.
Yeah,
right.
So Lando's not doing as well as he makes it seem.
Yeah, he's in hot water as well as them. Just he's playing it off that. He's like a suave ladies man.
But like, But I like the car. I like that scene because it's the first time they're really like getting a sense of each other. But I think the first time I saw it, but this time it didn't bother me as much. But the first time I saw it, I was like, if it was this easy to get him to help them, then why did we have to have the card game? And I mean, I guess we kind of did to establish like Lando, but.
Yeah, it was to establish Lando, and I feel like it was also like
right. So yeah, I'm like I know. I think this time around, I felt it served a much stronger purpose than the first time. But yeah,
it was a good scene for it was a good scene for them to like size each other up. It was like them like. We got to see like how Lando kind of deals with the situation. If like a situation gets too hard, he'll cheat, and Han will kind of like force his way through with like sheer luck and will and spite to come out on top. And sometimes that's not enough. You gotta think ahead. And at the end, he realizes that. Well, after the end of the first card game, he realizes that there's no way that Lando could have won because he counted the cards and it's like there's no way he could have had that card to have that configuration. So when he finds out that he's cheating, he outsmarts.
Is that why he hugs him in the beginning?
Out of his sleeve and then challenges
Which also,
him to a real
can we
fight.
acknowledge that Lando had a tropical shirt?
Yes.
That shirt was awesome. Yes. I want that shirt.
I think that's like one of the like premium skins in like Battlefront 2 when you play as
probably.
It is like you can
that would track.
You can play as like Billy D. Williams and like on like his like Bespin gear and then like him as his like Hutt disguise and then you can play as like Glover.
But overall,
it's him in his like Hawaiian shirt and cape.
I think overall everything as of right now. Everything I think this is kind of real. There wasn't really anything that I didn't buy or believe. There were a couple times where it's like they're giving us exposition or like this was kind of annoying, but for the most part, like I totally think that this is how Han
Yeah.
would behave, and I think everyone needs to take a chill pill about this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing that I felt like was a bit much, that I feel like this was just Han retelling the story to someone else and adding extra bits for like flair and dramatics, was when they're being attacked by basically the Kraken that he tricked into like falling into like a black hole to get out of the Kessel to do the Kessel run. It's like, okay, that seems a bit much. You can just say that you got caught in a gravity well and shut yourself out. The whole bit with like the Kraken seemed a bit much. But yeah, aside from that, it seemed like this was possible. It just seemed like there was like extra moments where there was like a bit more um oomph in his story, that it was just him bragging a bit more. It's like, oh, and then we fought this giant kraken, but I outsmarted it by launching an escape pod, and then I fought a gangster, and I
That would have
totally
actually
didn't
been
run
really
away.
funny if in
And just,
the if he was waiting for Lando, like whilst waiting, he's like telling somebody this and like telling the story, and then we're like, oh, so some of this is probably he's just like fudging whatever. But that would have been a funny way
yeah.
to.
Uh,
That would have been
I mean,
funny. Like,
I mean, they sort of winked at that a little bit with when they're on Savareen at the end. It's I think him and Chewie are arguing about how
right.
it's 12 parsecs if you round down,
yeah,
and then you cut to A New Hope, and
Right.
he's like, "Oh yeah, it's the ship
yeah.
that made the Kessel Run in
So,
under 12 parsecs," which means he just keeps rounding
it's like,
down over the
that sounds like a
years.
good solid number. um, So yeah, I think that more or less wraps up Solo, and I'm really looking forward to our next episode, which we're kind of bouncing back and forth between two ideas, and one of them might be a double feature. So stay tuned for that one, folks. And in the meantime, Sam, where can these lovely people find
You
our
can find
voices?
us on, pretty much wherever you can find podcasts. So Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, uh, Overcast. We're also on YouTube, and we're actually on like it's caught up. Like everything's on there, which is rare. And
Yay!
also follow us on Instagram or Facebook. Like, subscribe, follow, and yeah, we give you like heads ups. I give you heads ups on what's coming up, and yeah, and Ben, thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Uh,
I was disappointed you weren't. We were disappointed you weren't there last time.
oh yeah,
You're welcome. Always fun.
yeah.
There was a question.
It's all
There was a question
Yeah,
I
that I
asked
missed
Kevin,
one.
and
I
it
was
went into like a downward spiral
super
because he was
tired
like,
after work.
I don't remember what it was, but we were like, damn it, why isn't Ben here? Maybe.
Oh, it was something about
Yeah.
the timeline.
Oh, right. It was
don't
right.
remember now.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But before we go, Ben, do you have any shout outs or people where people can find you or anything?
Not really, no.
All right, fantastic. Why I asked. And then with
Hi,
that
Mom.
being said,
Yeah.
that being said, I'm Kevin Tracy,
I'm Samantha Tomlinson.
I'm Ben Deckert.
and you've been listening to Movie Reel. May the force be with you, folks. Bye bye.